All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out today to Insight Brewing for our first live show of Wooden Sticks. My name is Kevin Gorg, host of the program. How about a round of applause for former Wild goaltender Alex Stalock, who is here today. South St. Paul's finest. Al, welcome. Your second time on the show. You're the first person to be on more than once. Obviously, You're a goaltender. We cater to the guys in between the pipes, so thanks for being here.
And this one hopefully is a lot clearer. I was in the middle of Illinois, northern Illinois, when I was trying to do the first one, and I got, we said, let's do this another day.
Well,
what?
This time you get to do it while you're drinking a beautiful beer, and this is the official Wooden Sticks beer today on special for $5, specially brewed for this show here today. How do you rate it? I'm a Diet Coke guy, so I don't get to taste the beer.
One sip and everybody knows the rule. It's already beyond one sip and it's past 10:30. It's great. They did a good job. It's a nice blonde ale. They said they ran two. We're gonna have 2 pallets full. So I got my truck here, so 1 pallet should fit in the back.
Awesome. Wild and Wings today at 11:30. Food truck here somewhere around 12 o'clock with smash burgers and wings. That'll be awesome. We've got a Bloody Mary special as well. And if you see the guy walking around here in the really cool black North Star sweater from the early 90s, that is a regular here at Insight Brewing. His name is Bob. He is a fabulous guy. Say hello to Bob. He's a collector of NHL sweaters, and he's a cancer survivor, and we love that guy. He'll be a regular here at Wooden Stick. So, Al, let's first start the show by talking some hockey. All of us as fans of the game are on the heels of what we just witnessed with the Four Nations Faceoff. I didn't know what to expect going into it. I know right now it's some of the best hockey I've ever seen.
It was unbelievable, and I think you got a lot of questions from non-hockey guys. I know friends, we're in the hockey season right now with youth hockey, my son and my daughters, obviously, and everybody comes up and asks, like, is this going to be real? Like, are they going to try? You see these events, you see all-star games, and, guys, they don't want to get hurt. They're playing high skill. It's 3-on-3, 4-on-4 stuff where it's fun to watch. You see the skill out, but it's not a high compete. And going into this, I kept telling them, I think this is going to be really good. And they ask, why are they doing it? Well, it could possibly be the last time that you see, 3 greats with McKinnon, McDavid, and Crosby, not only on the same line, but on the same ice together wearing a Canadian flag. So the NHL realized they needed to get something going. And then you look at the U.S. roster, and we're fortunate right now to have the Chuck brothers and Austin Matthews and the names and the depth. And going to that game, you just had a feeling something was going to happen. Did you think it was going to be in the first 9 seconds? I didn't, obviously. I thought there was going to be some lead up, but it says a lot about where the game's at right now, the passion level between the two countries, and who wants to be called that this is our sport. And it's been Canada forever, but you can see it slowly. There's a changing of the guard taking place, it seems like. And you look at the teams that were sent to the Four Nations, and obviously there's some Minnesota flavor to that U.S. team. But you look at the goaltending position, us up here being 2 goaltenders, U.S. clearly, I think, had the strongest crease in that tournament.
Yep.
And then you go out to the blue line. You go out to the forward. The blue line, and Brock Faber, you look at it here in Minnesota, and people question, like, what's Brock going to do for us? He's going to get us 70 points, 80, 90 points, like some of those top defensemen. But I think you saw firsthand, he's going over the boards every time. Nathan McKinnon's going over the boards. Connor McDavid's going over the boards. Yeah, you want more points anytime you're a defenseman. But to see what he does and play 28 minutes a night against the world's best is USA's came so long since the last World Cup of hockey.
Yeah, my takeaways are that we're all, as hockey fans, hoping that our game can continue to progress. And of the big 4 sports out there, hockey still is number 4. NFL is still king. We get that. But it was a rare week for me, Al, where with the NFL football season in the rearview mirror, with the NBA on their All-Star break, the NHL had this opportunity, this giant stage. And when I saw the numbers from the championship game, where there was over 9 million viewers in our country, 16 million plus in North America, those are numbers we're not used to seeing. And that's Stanley Cup numbers. And that's a credit to the league for having the foresight to skip the All-Star game and to try something different. And you made the point. Would the guys be bought in? It's clear now when these guys put on their country's sweater, it matters. And to see all 4 of those teams compete at the level they did, and know now we're going to get that in an Olympic Games next year. To me, this is the start of something that's really going to grow the game.
Yeah, you're right about timing. The timing of it was perfect. I don't know how many times with the league shut down, and if the Timberwolves aren't on, of course, I'd have nothing to watch. But it was hey, stop to laugh. But if there wasn't a game on that night from the Four Nations tournaments, I'd say to my wife, I'd say to the kids, well, what are we going to watch tonight now? You know, and we had to wait 2 days for that U.S.-Canada game. But the NHL did a good job, obviously, leading up to that series. You know, the GMs of each team building those teams and the process they did. They took their time doing it. They named, 3 or 4 guys right away. And then the buildup of who they were going to take. And then, just people, how they are, who are they going to cut? And at the end, the guys that got cut, unfortunately, they were still watching. You look at a guy like Tate Thompson, who got called right up at the end, but was willing to go and be there in case someone was sick. And every night sit in front of that TV. I know in our house, before it even started, we did a drawing, and Mom and Dad got one team. Our oldest boy got one team, and our other daughters got the 2 European teams. So it was Mom and Dad versus our oldest boy last night or the other night, and Mom and Dad didn't end up with Canada. So, but it was
you were in Taunton, Simon.
We were playing for an ice cream party. So now me and Fisher got to take ourselves out to an ice cream party. We were hoping one of the kids would win, and obviously we were hoping Simon had Team USA would win, but. We had an outdoor game going on at our house that night, and we had family and friends over, and we had a fire going, and we so badly wanted a few of those shots late in overtime to get past Jordan Binnington, but they made the right decision, I guess, to stick with him all tournament long.
Yeah, we'll get to the goaltending, but I got to tee you up with Connor McDavid, because he was quiet throughout the game between Faber on the back end and Eichel up front. I thought Mike Sullivan, the head coach for U.S., did a great job of making McDavid look almost human. You played and were in the organization with the Oilers at the end of your career, and I vividly remember you and I talking, not on a podcast, but just talking about what he brings to the table and how difficult it is to face a guy like McDavid. He got the puck in the slot, and as soon as he had that puck on a stick, I knew the game was over. And I have a ton of respect for Hellebuck. He's the best goaltender in the world right now. You give him that spot. Take us into the crease right now, though. Seen him in practice, facing Connor McDavid. Why is he able to do what he's able to do at such a different level than almost any other player I've ever watched?
Well, I think it's the part that no one sees is the work that gets put in. Everybody goes as a fan, you go to the game at 7:00 and you're there till 9:30, and that's what you see. No one sees the work that he puts in from the moment he wakes up until he leaves the rink, whether it's after a game or an after practice. The work he puts in the summer, the commitment to his diet, his nutrition, all that is incredible, and it's beyond the guy that's in the NHL, and he's middle of the pack guy. He's just so much ahead of that guy, and that's his mind, how he thinks the game, how he wants to be the best. He just doesn't want to let anybody pass him. Now you look at the game side of it, it's just incredible what he has the ability to do. When he gets the puck, especially watching that Canada-US game, every time he got it, I was like, oh no, here it could be. He winds it up and he gets it going. He has that ability. He's a game changer, but he said after the game himself, I wasn't great. But because he's used to playing every night in the NHL, where you look at how good the coaching is in the NHL, the ability to get them out for matchups. So not only is he on the power play, he's out there the whole time, 2-minute power plays, but he's seeing third and fourth lines of other teams, where when you're at home, he gets to get out there and play against those lines. So he's playing against lesser players, lesser skill. He gets more dynamic chances. So this tournament was so cool to see, because there wasn't really a bad line that he could get out against. So he'd get a chance here or there, but it wasn't every time he was on the ice. He wasn't playing against a third, fourth line guy. He was playing against a top line team around the NHL every time he was on the ice. But then you look at who was coming over the boards for the U.S., Brock Faber, our guy, and how well he did against him says so much where that kid's at in his game 2 years into the league, second full year in the league, playing against the best player in the world right now. I mean, that part to me was so cool. Is I wanted to see who John Cooper was going to send out. I wanted to see who Sullivan was going to send out, especially when whoever was the whole team. I thought it was so cool that this line would go, okay, and this is who we thought would match up against this line. And if you're not, the average hockey fan is going to show up, they're going to see 97s on the ice, 87s on the ice. So you're going to put your best players. Well, that's not always the case. You might put out a Brock Nelson against this guy, or he might like this matchup. And that part of it to me was so interesting, watching the coaching in that. The on-ice product,
chess game, right?
The on-ice product obviously was so cool and so fast. It's amazing how fast that game was. But the coaching side of it, the work that went in behind the boards with Bill Guerin, the GM here, obviously, and the coaches, when they'd sit down at night and their game plan going into each game, It must. I would have loved to sit in those rooms and see their thoughts on each player, because the work that got put in behind the scenes to put the product out there.
And I thought ESPN did a really good job leading up to all the games, but specifically the championship game. They had a 1-hour pregame show where they had the coaches mic'd up. They took you inside the locker room. They spent as much time covering that game as an NFL game that we get during the playoffs, where everybody gets to see the work that goes into it, the preparation that gets these guys ready to go, and then the coaches communicating with those players. To me, I was fascinated with the way they covered that hour leading up to that game. And again, I think there'll be a ripple effect here where the game is growing because of it. And I was just taken back by how many people throughout the world of sports, if you're on social media, were just dialed into that hockey game. Players from other sports, coaches from other sports. It was one of those rare times in hockey's history where they literally had center stage, and we need more nights like that.
Absolutely, and I think they've realized that now. You're going into the Olympics, and you're obviously hoping. I don't know if it's official that the NHL players are going. It is.
They are
correct.
going. It's official,
and so that's obviously going to be super super cool, because the last one we did see was amateurs at the time, and to get the NHL players to get the okay, the new head, I believe, of the NHLPA. Was the guy from out east? You'd know his name. We just hired him within the last year.
This is not good podcast.
Okay, I can look it
at all.
I can look it up anyway. That's why we got the Google machine right next to us. But he's done
Simon, get on that.
He's done it. He actually would know how to do that.
For sure he would.
He's done a tremendous job with the players, taking it and putting it back in the players' hands. It felt like for years we were losing grip of that, and during the COVID stuff and all the meetings we had with that, we felt like it was getting away from us a little bit. And we hired the right guy, and I think the players are back feeling like they have control of their careers now. They can dictate whether they want to play in this stuff, because every player wants to, right? There's risk of injury, and Billy Guerin said it best. You're not going to play hockey. You can't play hockey to the fear of getting hurt. It's just not going to work. And you put a hockey player in gear and you give them a puck, they're going to compete. It's not like, hey, I'm not going to try to win this game. It's with anything, any competitive athlete, whether it's ping pong, whatever they pick up, they don't want to lose. It goes back to the Connor McDavid. Being around him for the 4 months I got to be around him, he never wanted to lose at anything. Whether it was we were golfing up in Edmonton, believe it or not, there was golf up there, but whether it was the ping pong table or anything I was around him with, it was another side of competitiveness that you have never seen before. And I do think having the NHL back in the Olympics and hoping for the countries, because you heard it in a few interviews throughout the 4 nations that, hey, we do have best on best. Yes, but we have 4 nations. There are still really good hockey players sitting at home watching. And they were right about that. There's teams that can be put together that for countries, you look at Germany or you look at Swiss. There's so many more players that are coming into the NHL that are dynamic NHL players, not just filling roles. And I think the next thing to look forward to is, and I think you're going to get a lot more viewership for a Winter Olympics when hockey's back in it.
So let's talk about your career, because you've just made the transition from
take that part out
from playing.
Let's go to something else,
to broadcasting, and you're going to have a flight tonight to Calgary to go cover the San Jose Sharks and the Flames tomorrow, which I think is really cool. What's it been like, Al? And now that you're working on TV with us at FanDuel Sports Network and being in the midst of the great Anthony LaPanta, how has this transition been for you?
The great Anthony LaPanta is right. And it was great to see his vacation in Costa Rica got off to a great start. And you saw that, and I'm sure everybody saw that.
We saw the meats and cheeses last night, too. This guy lives at a high level, man.
Yeah. So, no, it's been awesome to work with him. But I've been fortunate to stay in the game of hockey. I love the game of hockey. I've watched a lot of games of hockey in my life from the front row seat on a bench in an NHL arena, and got to see it firsthand. The interaction between players and coaches on the bench, players and players, coaches and coaches, all that dynamics. I think it's stuff that you take in, and I got to watch and learn from. And obviously, you wish you were on the ice at times, but it was a good way to learn the game. And I got to see it from the best seat in the house every night. And I was fortunate to get a call this past summer from the Sharks, and I knew it wasn't from the GM, so that wasn't an opportunity to play. Obviously, I knew my career was over, and they said the team services guy called, and he said, "Hey, where are you playing next year?" I said, "I'm not playing." He goes, "Okay, perfect. Do you want to do any radio?" And I knew exactly what he was calling for. And the great Brett Hedigan of North St. Paul, Minnesota, took a job with Anaheim Ducks doing a player development role, so he wanted to get more involved on the hockey side. So San Jose got put into a pinch late in the summer and needed some voices to fill in for some of the radio games, and I thought they did a great thing. They got 6 or 7 of alumni that have played in Sharks history.
Really cool.
And we're chipping in and doing 8 to 10 games each throughout the year. And it was really cool that they reached out and thought it would be a good fit. And I got to give a ton of credit. I know you mentioned Anthony, but Dan Ruzanowski, who's been the voice of the Sharks since day one,
class act,
has been there has taught me so much on the radio side, just preparation, professionalism. He's as old school as they get. We still read scores after every single game around the league, and I want to tell them that everybody has an iPhone now, Dan, and they can look on their phone. But he does it. Our 30-minute post game show is so detailed, and the time that he puts in, he still keeps a book. Every penalty, we could be out to dinner, and he'll remember a game from November of 1993, who scored the game winner at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and I'm just blown away his knowledge of the game of hockey. But he's allowed me to get into it. He's guided me through it. I've learned so much, and that's led me to have the ability to try the TV stuff. And obviously our good friend Ryan Carter, day one held my hand into it, and Audra Martin does a great job on it, steering me through that. But you never know where the game of hockey takes you. And I learned that since I was a young kid, and I'm fortunate to be back involved with the Minnesota Wild in a small capacity. And I'm thankful for it all.
I'm going to have you put your analyst hat on here in just a second. I'm going to ask you about the 5 players that represented the Minnesota Wild in the Four Nations Faceoff. Before I get to that, fans that are here at Insight Brewing with us, we're going to do some Wild trivia. We've got some awesome prizes. Because we have a goalie for our first live show in Alex Stalock, we've got some autographed glasses and some autographed pucks and a Marc-Andre Fleury bobblehead along with an Insight Brewing t-shirt behind me. Throughout the show, we're going to do some trivia. The first trivia question will be in about 10 minutes. And again, we've got Bloody Mary specials and the $5 Wooden Stick special beer here for the show today. And at the very end, we've got a microphone set up where you can ask Al or I questions if you've got things that pop up. But right now, take a look at the 5 guys from the Wild that played in this tournament. Start with Gustafsson, who was awesome against Team Canada in the lid lifter of this tournament in a high-pressure spot at the Bell Center with all those Canadian fans. Eck, who looked like he was playing first-line minutes, power play, front of the net, like he always does with the Wild. Brodin established what Brodin always establishes, shut down for Sweden. And then, of course, Boldy, who evolved into a first or second line forward. And, of course, Brock Faber, we've talked about a bunch already on the show, who ended up being with Slavin the top pairing for the U.S.'s defensive core. Of those 5 players, all 5 probably got a lot out of this tournament, Al. But if you could pick only one, where you look at the next 6 weeks, and by the way, we've got the Wild's service dog here, rookie, Gabby Billing, who played at Dartmouth. Gabby, control your dog. Anyway, that's the background noise. Which Wild player got the most out of this? Where in the next 6 weeks, Al, you're going to see a jump up in their play with Minnesota because of what they went through in the Four Nations.
Well, they're all going to come back with confidence, right? They all got something out of that, being named to that for the country. But my thought is a guy like Brock Faber. When you're called upon to go out against the best in the world at that age is pretty dang impressive. And now he has the confidence that you look at Minnesota, where they're sitting right now in the standings. Who are they going to play in playoffs? Is it going to be Colorado? Is it going to be Dallas? Now he's looking over there, and he has the confidence that he can go against a McKinnon. He can go against a Rope Hintz. He can go against a Robertson. And I think he's gained so much out of that. And not only, like, around the league, I think Connor McDavid's gained respect. Who was Brock Faber before that? And I know being firsthand around him, he'd mention players like, I can't stand this guy because he can skate with me. I can't stand this guy because he can skate with me. Well, now Brock Faber's introduced himself to the world of hockey. Everybody knows Brock Faber now, right? Minnesota, it is Hockey USA, but is it an A market? No, you turn hockey on TV. Who do you watch? You watch Washington, you watch Pittsburgh, you watch New York, right? Wild games, there's not a ton of national games. So we talk about Brock Faber. He's a fine defenseman. Well, he just showcased himself to the 16 million people around the world why he's one of the best defensemen in the game of hockey right now. He's going to come back, and I think he's going to have that swagger, that confidence that he can skate with anybody now. Maybe early on in his career, hey, can I stick with them? Maybe. I'm just out there. I feel luck granted to be out there, and I can be with him on the ice. It's kind of cool. Now he knows he can control the game for him. Yeah. I think that's so important for him to have that confidence. There's no one in the league now that can outskate him, that can outplay him, outthink him, and he can match up with the best in the world. You look at the other guys. Eck, he does what he does every night he's on the ice, right?
Yeah. He's like a robot.
He's always in a scuffle. He's always around the net. He's always causing chaos, right? You know what you're going to get out of him. But I think, you look at a guy like Boldy, a young guy to be thrown in there to be around the best. He's got the ability to sit in the locker room and say, what does this guy do before a game? How does he prepare? How does he prepare? What makes this guy so good? What does Austin Matthews do in practice to make his shot get through? He sees stuff maybe on the ice like, wow, I can implement that in my game, and that can take me so much longer. Obviously, he took a step throughout the tournament. He was called upon timing-wise late in games. He was out there thinking offense, power play looks, stuff like that. But, for him, he might have taken something different out of it where, hey, well, I can add this to my repertoire. I like setting guys up. I like doing this. But if I want to start scoring 30 goals every year, if I add this small adjustment or just picking his ear, going up to Austin Matthews, hey, what do you do here? Stuff like that, being around those guys, I think is so big for those young guys. And it's not like they're at the end of their career. They're at the beginning of their career and get this opportunity. It's not too late now. This is stuff they can add for years to come. These guys are here long term. Yeah,
and I just look at Brock Faber and how seamless that transition was. And he was a really good player at the U of M, but he wasn't a special teams guy. He wasn't a guy that you talked about every year as like a Hobie Baker candidate. And he made that transition from college hockey to the NHL as seamless as I've ever seen. And I go back to that picture that circled all over social media. A year before he graduated from the University of Minnesota, he's at a Wild game with his Gopher sweatshirt on in the corner, in the front row, and Kirill Kaprizov has scored a goal. And Brock Faber is like every one of us during a game going crazy, pounding on the glass. And a year later, he makes the transition and becomes a go-to defenseman. And now he's one of the best players in the world with all the pressure of being in his hometown. And that's where I want to take this question to you, Al. It's not easy to play in the NHL. It's specifically not easy to do it when you're a Minnesota kid playing in Minnesota in this fishbowl, because everybody that you grew up with is around you, your family, your friends. Everybody wants a piece, right? How do you manage your time? How do you manage as a young player playing in your hometown? Because Brock's done it really, really well, and you certainly did as well.
Yeah, for him, it's a lot different story. I came back to Minnesota when I was, I would say on the second half, it was my second chance, and I was older. I was 28. I had a son at the time. I had a family. Now he's just out of college at the University of Minnesota, where he's still got buddies in college. He's trying to play for the NHL team in St. Paul, yet he's probably getting texts at, midnight. Hey, you need to come here. Midnight. You need to come here. Come meet us over here. Come meet us over here. Now, if that would have been me at 22,
that would have been trouble.
I would have made it about 3 months in this league, and it wouldn't have worked out. So I was really fortunate. I got to be far, far away from my hometown, and to get my career started away from the Twin Cities. For him, it just shows the maturity of a person that he is, to have that ability to put that stuff aside. I know I've met his parents. He's a family-oriented guy.
Yeah.
And he loves the game of hockey. And it just says a lot about how he was raised. His parents did an unbelievable job with him. He's a tremendous young man, and the maturity level. And you talk about the hockey side of it, and he wasn't on the power play. He wasn't a special teams guy. It's how smart he is as a hockey player. Yeah. And some guys can get down and be so worried that they're not on the power play. Oh, I don't power play. I only penalty kill. Well, he was smart. He realized he can play at this level. And what does he need to do to play at this level? And good defense, offense will come. And I think that's what's got him here is he's really, really cerebral hockey player. He's realized what makes him good. Yeah, when Spurgeon went down last year, he needed to step up his offensive game. He was relied on the power play. Okay, now he's back, right? And it changes year to year. Now all of a sudden you get an offensive power play guy. He knows his role. He can adapt, and he's smart enough as a hockey player, mature enough as a human. At his age, is mind-blowing. I wouldn't have been able to do what he did.
All right, for the first time on the show, we're going to segue to a trivia question, and this is going to tie into your career, Al, especially with the hometown Minnesota Wild. So Nicklas Backstrom is the all-time winningest goalie in the history of the Minnesota Wild. And as we sit here at Insight Brewing, we've got a puck autographed by one of the all-time greats for our hometown team. Now, he wore number 32, and longtime equipment trainer Tony DaCosta kind of runs the show behind the scenes, as you know.
In front of the scenes, all over the scenes.
Well, he's everywhere.
He's everywhere. He wants to be seen everywhere.
Well, if you watch our broadcast, he's the good-looking trainer that stands exactly where our camera is whenever we show the Wild bench. And Whitey, the white dog, Andrew Hyde, who put this whole production together over at Talk North, you all know he works his way into camera space every single night. He dyes his hair. He goes to the tanning booth, and you guys are all over him about this. And if he's listening, no, we're not going to have to edit that. Anyway, tell us the story about Nicholas Backstrom, because Tony DaCosta, when Backstrom finally got out of plane, basically told Backy, you're one of the all-time greats. I'll do what I have to do to make sure nobody else wears the number 32, at least for a period of time here, out of respect for what you've done for this organization. The Wild pick up Alex Stalock like 2 months later. Take it from there.
Yeah, so that just shows you how far Tony's word gets with anybody. Yeah, so hopefully when you did ask for your skate sharpens, they actually did get done. But no, I do remember, I hear that story. I've heard it like 450 times now. But yeah, obviously I was a huge Wild fan when Backstrom was here playing, and he had so many good years and all-star games and all that. And I just was always 32 in my career, and I didn't realize it would hurt Tony so much just to ask for that. But that summer when Chuck Fletcher, at the time the GM here in Minnesota, signed me, and Tony reached out, and as each equipment manager, they reach out when you get traded or you sign with a new team, and he asked, hey, what do you wear for pads? Who paints your helmet? Who does your sticks? All that. And then finally, he was probably waiting really long for this question, but what number do you want? And I said, well, there's 32 available now. And he said, let me get back to you on that. And yeah, so now ever since then, like Kevin said, I have, anytime I'm around Tony or around a group of people, he tells that story, and then he follows it up with like 9 or 10 more.
He is something. And it's the best part of traveling with the team, which I'm lucky enough to do. And you've seen that whole camaraderie that the training staff has, that the doctors have, the coaches. There's a hidden like running joke that every city we go to, and Tony DaCosta is probably the ringleader. The pranks that go on, it's nonstop, and it kind of keeps it light, and it's a grind. You can attest for the players. It's an absolute grind to play 82 games. And that's part of the fun behind the scenes that nobody gets to see that I just love.
Yeah, and one of my favorite Tony DaCosta stories actually comes from one of the all-time great Minnesota Wild players and coaches, Darby Hendrickson. And he's got the really good sense of humor where he drops it in a lot of conversations that Tony's met. But, Tony was the first equipment manager here for the Wild. So when you're the first equipment manager, like, you got to start from scratch. You got to piece together your equipment room. You need to figure out where you want your skate sharpener, your tools, and all that. And Tony thinks it's the greatest thing that he did it himself, And so Darby all the time will be like, hey, Tony, you got to tell him about how you designed the equipment room. And he goes into this long story of, I had to order the wall. I had to get all this stuff. I had to order the tools. And I'm like, well, you're the head equipment manager, Tony. I mean, who'd you want to do?
That's what you do.
That's what you do. And he thinks it's the greatest thing that he had to put the room together. I'm like, no, that's your whole thing. So Darby does a great job always leading into that story when we're around with people, and I always get kept by, you didn't have to order the screwdrivers, did you, Tony? Like, no way did you pick the sharpener? And he goes into it, and he's serious. You know how he gets.
Oh, I know how angry he gets. And that's the best part. Well, when Whitey was working, running our travel, and him and Tony would have one of their little skits. And then the skits, right? Where they act like all-star wrestlers and they get after each other like they were going to actually throw it down.
Speaking of wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
The match you announced with Andrew.
I got to be Mean Gene Okerlund, and I got to see how do you explain T-Bone? Travis is our massage therapist with the Wild. He is built like a shit brick house. And, I mean, this guy, there isn't an ounce of fat on this guy, right? And Whitey, great athlete.
Got in shape for that one.
He did. Whitey trained, and we had a wrestling match.
Or one day, or
he
trained. He trained.
No, he trained. So we had a deal 5 or 6 years ago. Whitey was going to take on T-Bone. They both had a background in wrestling. In fact, Whitey probably had the better background, but T-Bone probably wrestled at a heavier weight and a higher level. And so the whole team gathered around. We had our GM there. We had all the coaches there. There was a lot of $100 bills being exchanged on the side bets. And we had the music. And then, Whitey, you had the trainers. Do you want to come up here and join us just for a minute? So Whitey had Jared Spurgeon, who was the little
Tyler Ennis.
Yeah, his little buddy Tyler. They come in with the USA
Jumpsuits,
red, white, and blue. We had musics, walk-up songs, and we had this build-up for like weeks. Whitey had a fight poster built, kind of like the posters for the podcast. I hope it doesn't end like this wrestling match did. But anyway, so there's this build-up, weeks into it. All the guys are there. I've got the microphone. We've got everybody in place. We've got all the bets placed. Dubnik was like the bookie. They were running the whole thing. They get the wrestling mat out and then Zamboni tunnel behind at the X. These guys come out. We do the introductions, and I swear to God, poor wife.
How long did that last?
That thing lasted less than 40
seconds.
seconds. This poor guy got just slammed down like a cartoon, flat like a pancake, and then Tebow's just this big guy standing over him because he did all the smash talking. Like he was talking smack for weeks, and T-Bone's a really quiet guy and just kicked his ass. I'm sorry, Whitey. I didn't know we were going to bring this up today.
And then it was like this, and it was just, all right, boys, normal practice, a video in 10 minutes. And I was like, what? How do we go down?
How do you segue from that? All right, so our first trivia question, you got to come up to the microphone here to get the prize. It is a Nicklas Backstrom autograph puck, and I think it's a question that if you're a true Wild fan, I think you can look back in the memory bank. It's not too far back, but we need you to be involved here. So the last time the Wild won an overtime playoff game, who was the Wild player that scored the goal? And I guess the hint is he's on the team right now, but you won't see him in Detroit on the ice today. I need you to run to the microphone as soon as you've got the answer. It's Nicklas Backstrom. It's an autograph puck. The last Wild player to score an overtime winning goal in the playoffs. And we'll keep talking until somebody comes up and gets the courage here to get this puck. All right. So let's talk about.
No one's got the courage yet?
Well, we got maybe some more Wooden Sticks beer, and we'll get someone up to the microphone. Think about that answer. Maybe you have to hit the Google machine. Last Wild player to score an overtime winner, still on the team, will not be seen on the ice in Detroit today. All right.
Sorry to Google machine. Marty Walsh, executive director of the NHL.
There you go.
That's
now
my
we cleared that up.
My fault. It's Marty Walsh.
That's like a covenant
It
cleanup.
was Don Fair, who was with the MLBPA forever,
Right.
and we had him, and now we got Marty Walsh.
Here's your second Wooden Sticks Pilsner. They are beautiful. Thank you again to Insight Brewing for putting that together. These guys are awesome. I can't believe this Nicklas Backstrom puck is still here. So somebody, God, hit the Google machine. Get up here on the microphone. Let's talk about your South St. Paul days. Oh, we got. All right, come to the microphone. Don't be shy. This is a podcast. The listening audience has to hear you. What's the answer?
I'll guess Eriksson Ek. Is that right?
Oh, no. He'll be on the ice today. Good guess. Really good guess. Current Wild player, scored an overtime winner the last time they won a playoff game in the extra session, but he won't be on the ice today in Detroit. There's Bob. What about Bob? Come on up. Don't be shy.
Is it Jared Spurgeon?
No, Jared Spurgeon will be on the ice today. So think about now, I'm going to keep throwing hints out. The opponent was Dallas. It was a couple years ago. He is still on the roster. He scored the overtime winner. But he will not be playing today in Detroit. Brenda, come on up. Don't be shy. Closer.
Kaprizov?
No. Really good guess. Really good guess. I love that we've got an audience that's working through this. Think about a regular on the roster that is still on the team that scored that overtime winner 2 years ago in Dallas, but he won't be allowed on the ice today. Oh, we got a young guy coming up here. Oh, no. We're not jumping in front of the little guy. Come on up here. Yeah, Al, help him with a mic.
Ryan Hartman.
Hey! Ryan Hartman, here you go, buddy. Yeah, that was a heck of a hockey game. It was game one in Dallas. Ryan Hartman, I don't think he'd play the rest of the series. He was playing through a significant injury. We've seen that movie before. So let's talk about today's matchup. We're here to do a Wild watch party. Wild game's going to start about 11:35. We're going to take the podcast right up into puck drop. So I look at this game as being a real challenge. It's a Saturday morning game. It's on the heels of you were either playing on a world stage for 2 weeks with all that pressure and all that media attention, or you were on a beach for 8 days drinking pina coladas, not training, and here's game one back. So
you don't think they were training?
I don't think they were doing anything other than sitting on a beach and drinking a lot of alcohol, which is cool. So
I think that's changed.
I don't.
I do really think that's changed.
Really?
I do. Yeah, I feel like.
Have you been around Marcus Foligno?
As my career, as I went through my career, towards the end, I noticed there was a change. The younger guys were coming in, and they were making sure to get workouts in.
Sure.
And,
okay.
From my poolside chair and my beach chair, I would make sure that the young guys were going in and out. And I would do a good job of sending a selfie of I'd make sure to pack a gray T-shirt. and I'd get my neck wet, the armpit spots
Oh,
wet, and
look
I'd
at
send
you.
it to Skahan being like, that was a heck of a workout today. I can't believe you put us through that, but that great job. We're looking forward to tomorrow's workout. But I do think as this new generation comes in the game, they are so serious about their nutrition. I mentioned about McDavid. They make sure to get in. They still might have their fun during the evenings or whatever with their young guys, but they seriously put the work in the mornings, and it's incredible, and that's why the game is as fast as it's at now. And I'm not just saying it because we're on the wooden sticks. These young guys do now take this serious.
Even
and
so,
I did too.
Okay, 2 weeks now. We've been off. So today in that Wild locker room, they're probably putting the skates on right now, getting ready for warmies. So we talked about the 5 guys that played in the World Nations.
Yep.
And we got 15 other guys that did not. Marc-Andre Fleury gets the nod in goal today. So which group has the bigger challenge to get to their game today and to play with energy? The 5 guys that played in that tournament or the 15 guys that were rested up, whether they were training or not? Which players are going to struggle more today?
Well, it's weird because you got 2 different dynamics. You got a group of 15 guys that have had the ability to recharge their batteries, get away from the game of hockey, but their challenge is to be getting back to NHL speed. You got a Detroit team. I don't know how many Detroit players were in the Four Nations.
Larkin for sure.
Larkin, I don't think there was 5 on Detroit.
No, there was not.
But then you have 5 Wild players who have been playing at the highest speed of all time. Now they're coming back to NHL speed, right? And that's guys coming off break, guys that have been rested. But you got to look at the whole dynamic. Detroit, too, since they've had their hiring of a new coach, Todd McClellan, who I was fortunate to play for in San Jose, one of the smartest coaches I've ever seen behind the bench. That's a rejuvenated Detroit team that now has had the ability to go into break, reset, and really understand their structure. Now they bought in. They've won games. They put themselves back in the playoff hunt. They're in must-win. They're in must-win hockey right now. They've done like that for the last month. So they know that. And Todd's going to prepare this team. His strength is preparation and on-bench management. They're playing against a team that needs to win. And they come back against them the following game as
home
well.
and home. They'll be back here in St. Paul Tuesday.
And there's some familiarity there. You got Cam Talbot in net for Detroit, who's having a heck of a year, right? Who wants to beat a Minnesota team. There's so many storylines in this game. Obviously, 11:30 game's goofy. And I know Flower, we've talked about it in the past. Does he like that afternoon start? He doesn't, but last time he had the afternoon start, he was incredible in that game.
There's nothing he can't do.
Right. And so they've also been practicing. It's not like they were at the beach last night and took a plane to Detroit.
Right.
They've been here. They've been skating. And Coach Hines has been forcing them to ramp up their speed. And he doesn't want to yell at them, but I know how those practices go. When you get back from break, you know what's going to happen. They're going to skate all the pina coladas out of you. They're going to skate all whatever you drank out of you in the first couple skates. And they're going to be ready to go. They're refocused. They know their job is to win games. Both teams are fighting for playoff spots right now. And it's the part of the year that hockey gets really fun as a player and as a fan. First month or 2 of the season's fun, right? You get to pick out, you get to start, see where you're at, right? And they say the teams by Thanksgiving, you kind of set yourself up for playoffs. Then there's the dog days of the season. There are about 20, 30 games you got to grind through. Then you get to this point in the season. This is where hockey actually gets really, really fun. You're setting up your playoff lineups every night. You get back, you look at the standings, you're like, oh, there's a good chance we might play them in playoffs. And you already can start kind of prepping that you might be playing Colorado, you might be playing Dallas. This is the time of year that good hockey players like playing the game of hockey.
And you mentioned Todd McClellan the last month leading into that break. Detroit had the best record in the league. That coaching change certainly worked. Middle of the show here, we've got the food truck coming around 12 o'clock. We're going to have smash burgers and wings, so get ready for that. We'll have the game on the big screen here. About 11:35 will be puck drop with Minnesota in Detroit. Got to thank my sponsors right now. My dear friend John Schweitz with Minnesota Masonic Charities. They do all kinds of great work in our community. Largest fraternal organization in America. And of course, the Children's Hospital, the home in Bloomington, spectacular. When people think of the Freemasons, they often think of secret handshakes and unusual hats. And of course, the pancake breakfast. Minnesota Masonic Charities would prefer that you think about the work that they do right here in our community. Places like the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota or the Masonic Children's Hospital and the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They are just a few examples of the important work that the Freemasons support here in Minnesota. As part of the largest fraternal organization in the world, Masons have consistently answered the call when it comes to charitable needs. I am happy that Minnesota Masonic Charities has chosen Minnesota Bound and this podcast as a place to help spread the word. We look forward to learning so much more about their many programs here in the weeks to come. OnX Maps has been awesome.
We've told you about OnX Hunt. Now let me tell you about OnX Fish. Ice fishing is here, and it's time to hit the frozen water with OnX Fish. The Fish app is the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your confidence on ice. Use OnX Fish to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potentials. OnX Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. For a limited time, download OnX Fish for free in Minnesota and Wisconsin, or go to onxmaps.com/fish to get more information on the app that is changing the game on ice.
Insight Brewing, our newest partner here, having us here for live shows now starting today. And every month we'll be doing this. And I'm on social media a lot. I'll send out different guests that we're going to have. We wanted to start with one of the all-time best in Alex Stalock. So thank you to them for their great support as well. And thank you guys today for coming out. Hey, thank you to our new partner, Insight Brewing. They are located over in Northeast Minneapolis. The Insight Tap Room features 25 tap lines of rotating beers, THC seltzers, non-alcoholic beverages, local food trucks, and so much more. Insight has a 120-inch projection screen, and they will be showing all of the Minnesota Wild games throughout the season. You can also join Wooden Sticks at Insight Brewing at the Tap Room once a month for live shows featuring special guests, watch parties, hot takes, and of course, cold beer. You want to guarantee your seat? I got good news there too. Visit insightbrewing.com to request a free reservation. For a full list of other events, the food truck schedule, new beer releases, and more, follow at Insight Brewing on your favorite social media platforms and stay up to date. Thank you again, my friends over at Insight Brewing. We're going to do some more trivia. My next question is up. You're going to get your pick of the prizes here. We've got a couple of autographed glossies. We've got the Marc-Andre Fleury bobblehead. We've got the Insight Brewing wild-themed T-shirt with the red and the green. This name has already been mentioned on the podcast, so you have no excuse. You can see warm-ups are underway in Detroit. I need the name of the first Wild player to ever score a goal in a regulation game at the XL Energy Center. And Bob is just sprinting to the microphone. What do you got for me, Bob?
Who is Darby Hendricks?
Yes!
Who is?
You get your pick.
I should have taken a video of that.
You get your pick of the prizes. You get the Marc-Andre Fleury bobblehead. Well done. Darby Hendrickson, and I know what's so funny about Darby, and we got to have a little Darby talk. He's coaching in Nashville now. I was at the Gopher game last night, and his son Beckett made just a spectacular play to set up the second goal. Cross-ice beauty, tape to tape, and ended up being the game-winning goal that he helped set up. I texted Darby, typical Darby fashion, got right back to me within 30 seconds. I've been around pro athletes now for 3 decades, Al. You also have been around pro athletes for a couple decades. Have you ever met, honestly,
Humble?
more humble, more down-to-earth guy than Darby Hendrickson?
No, he's unbelievable.
He's the best. And what's so funny is
I could only imagine his response, but needs to get back faster.
he works out with the guys. He still keeps up with the guys. They give him a hard time about it. And a lot of times they go mimic the one knee down, the goal that he scored. It's iconic if you ever see it on YouTube, that goal that he scored. Unfortunately, because Darby's such a quiet, humble guy, the Wild players on every current roster seem to go out there and try to embarrass him by going out there and redoing that goal. But he is just a spectacular human being.
Unbelievable. He is fortunate for how long that Minnesota Wild fans not to only have him as a player, but as a coach here. And he made it, and as assistant coach through so many head coaching changes,
I know.
which says a lot about the type of person he is. And what he brought to the locker room, he was that coach, that voice that you could go to and tell him anything or joke with them, have fun with them, because you do get the gruff coaches. You get coaches that you don't feel like you can talk to, or they're not open. They say they have an open door policy, but that door is about as locked shut as it is. You can make it, But Darby was in the gym, he was on the bike, he was in the cold tub, he was like one of the guys. But yet he was smart about it because he could listen, he could see where the room was at. He could see if we were tired and we were out of gas, or if you could see if we were energetic or looking forward to the next day coming and getting better. And it was an intelligent thing by him, the way he coached, the way he kind of hung around the group. He had a really good feel for a locker room and knew where a group was at. They might need the day off tomorrow. They look like they're gassed,
Yeah.
And like you said, the humbleness is, he never talked about himself once.
No, that's just not who he is. And nobody trained harder than Darby. I want to segue now to a guy that you're analyzing for our
No one trained
broadcast.
harder than Darby. I raised my hand.
I love that. I love that. Let's talk Marco Rossi, because I believe in a game like today, with an earlier start, all the challenges we've covered throughout the show here this morning at Insight Brewing. Marco Rossi is a guy that doesn't partake in a lot of the party side of things. He works extremely hard off the ice. I, however, was on Instagram and did see pictures. He didn't even go on spring break last year. He stayed back and worked out the whole time. The guys gave him a ton of grief. The first picture I see was Danielle Spurgeon sent it out on Instagram, and it was Cam Talbot, ironically, with Jared Spurgeon, Marc-Andre Fleury, and there's Marco Rossi. You know, little Marco, he's kind of the little brother to everybody in that locker room. So at least he went to spring break. But I got to tell you, Al, this kid seems like he gets better week by week. These last 2 years have been eye-popping. And to me, today in Detroit, as we get ready for this watch party, he's an X factor for the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, it's funny you tell a story like that. I got a good story about him too regarding similar stuff. But every week, every day. I mean, like you said, we talk about boldly learning stuff from Austin Matthews. He goes to the rink and he wants to get better. He loves the game of hockey. Like, he's hungry to get better. Like, and everybody's doubted him. You know, his size, he's not ever going to be a center in this league. And he competes his butt off every night. He puts himself around the net. You look at his goals. He doesn't score from the top of the circles. He's not like Alexander Ovechkin. Every one of his goals is around the net. He's just like a little pest. And he always has the puck on him. He always has a puck on his stick. He finds a way. He's smart. He thinks the game. Yeah, it's taking time. Everybody see a first-round pick for the Wild. He needs to play next year. Where's he slot in the lineup? That's not how it's always going to work. He needs time to develop as a player. And yeah, he went through medical condition where he had the myocarditis coming out of World Juniors. He needed time to recover. It took time with him. It might take time for these guys. And I think we're starting to see the patience that the front office has put with him. They've given him time. You've heard how many times, is this the guy we're going to trade this offseason? Is this the guy we're going to trade? And every year he comes back, it's like, how do you trade him? He gets 30 goals. He's going to end up with 30 goals again. How do you trade away a 30-goal guy? That's just something you can't do. He has that hunger, that dog, that fight, whatever you want to call it. That guys, it's contagious. Guys see it. Like, this guy's 5'9". He's going out and he's going to the net. Why can't I go to the net?
Right.
You know, and it goes back to, I'm living on the east side of town, not far from Thomas Vanek, who's from Austria, who hosted Marco at his house forever. And so this was maybe right after he got drafted. Minnesota had him here. He had the heart condition, right? And so I'm going out to Beauty League. And you guys all know, I'm sure, what the Beauty League is. A 4-on-4 summer league. I get a text from Thomas Vanek in the summer. Hey, can you pick up Marco at my house? He wants to come and watch the Beauty League. I said, yeah, we're playing the 5:30 game tonight. And I usually stick around after in the locker room with a few of the guys, and we have some LaCroix waters and hang out and stay a little bit later than normal, you know?
For sure.
And I said, just let Marco know that I'm probably not going to leave right after the game. He's like, no, it's fine. He wants to watch all 3 games. And so I drive over to Thomas Vanek's house. I pick up Marco Rossi. This is while he's going through myocarditis. Right. Jumps in my truck. Never met the kid in my life. We got a 45-minute drive over the other side of town. I talked to him about hockey, and that's all we talked about, really. You know, I got to maybe a few other topics. He goes over there, watches 3 games, jumps in the car with me after, and I was under .08. I get him home. I get him back to Vanek's. I text Vanek. I'm like, are you kidding me? He just sat there and watched 3 summer hockey games. This kid freaking loves hockey.
That's amazing.
Like, in the summer, jumps in my truck. Never met the kid in my life. Drive him out to Edina, Braemar Arena. 3 games of Beauty League. Drive him home. I text Vanek. I was like, that's unbelievable.
Well, and I will tell you that it's a little bit contagious right now over at Tria Rink, and I think it's a really good thing for Bill Guerin. It's a really good thing for John Hines. You mentioned the love that Marco Rossi has for hockey. They have a bunch of young guys right now that are rink rats, and I tell anybody who will listen that on a particular practice day at Tria Rink, the boys will hit the ice about 10:30. Practice will end somewhere around 11:30, 11:45, and then for all of us that cover the team, we go get a coach press conference with John Hines, ask the coach a bunch of questions, put him on camera, do that. Then we go down to the locker room, spend about 20 minutes down there, throw a camera and a mic in front of a couple of guys, get some sound. And so now by the time we get back up to the rink, it's about 40 to 45 minutes after practice. And who's on the ice? Every single time. Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi, and of course, Marc-Andre Fleury. And the reason I bring this up is, when your best players, and those are as big of stars as you have in the game right now. When your best players are the last ones to leave the ice, it sets the tone for everybody. And Marc-Andre Fleury is doing it at the age of 40. But Kirill Kaprizov has done it from day one. And I heard Billy Guerin interviewed yesterday on local radio, and they were asking about the injury and the surgery and when he might come back. And it was a great question by Dan Barrero on KFan. He said, how's he feeling? And without pause, Bill Guerin said one word: the kid is just plain frustrated. He is most happy, honest to God, when he's on a sheet of ice with a stick and a puck and playing the game he loves. And he is so unhappy right now that he can't be out there. But it's contagious, right? And it starts with Kaprizov, but the Marc-Andre Fleury influence. All these guys have that rink rat mentality, and I think all boats rise because of it. They all work their asses off every day, and it shows.
It just so happens they're showing highlights of Alexander Ovechkin on the TV behind you, but Kaprizov reminds me so much of him. Anytime he scores, he has a pure joy of scoring. And whether it's scoring or setting up his teammate, he's always got a smile on his face when he's playing hockey. And that was the last thing I'd get a text from my mom or dad before games. Have fun tonight. It wasn't go out and play. Don't give up any goals. Go hard, play hard. It was
have fun.
Have fun. And with players that you see, and it's Ovechkin, and that's the reason he's still playing. Marc-Andre Fleury, how many times throughout a game do you see him, give a puck to a ref and he's laughing or smiling or doing something? He's rubbing his post. And I said it on, I don't know if it was a TV broadcast or something the other day or radio, but we were talking about Fleury, and I think he's the only human in the world who was doing a post-game interview one time. He was talking about how pissed off he was about the game, and he was smiling. Like his face, he was like smiling, with the Fleury smile, and he was talking about how pissed he was. I was like, and it must have been with you. And I'm like,
it probably was.
He's the only human that can say I'm pissed off with a smile on his face.
Because he's where he wants to be.
It's unbelievable.
Okay, we got to take you to Montreal. You worked the broadcast that night.
Yeah.
I was
I got Walls stole it from me.
You got to be kidding.
Yes, it was his daughter's senior night, so we flip flopped. I went.
You were scheduled to be there.
I was scheduled, but yeah, Walls had his daughter's senior night, so he was fortunate to call that one. And then I got to go in for the wonderful Ottawa game.
Oh. That's a good test for any broadcaster. When the team you're covering get beat 6-0, it's not easy. But let's talk from a fan's perspective about what we saw at the Bell Center last month in Montreal, because Montreal is kind of like Yankee Stadium to baseball. This is old school hockey. They don't get up and cheer unless you do something pretty damn special, and they certainly don't cheer the guys that are playing against their beloved Montreal Canadiens. We saw it during warmups. We saw it during the anthem, and then something I've never seen, Al, in my 19 years of doing this job is we saw a 7-minute break during the game where the officials and the players on both teams just sat there and shrugged their shoulder because the 20,000 people in the building wouldn't sit down, wouldn't stop cheering, and wouldn't stop chanting his name. And this is a guy that never played for the Montreal Canadiens. What does that tell you about Fleury?
As a person, what he's done to the whole game of hockey. And obviously he grew up an hour from that arena, but
yep.
But that just doesn't happen to a great hockey player. Like, there's how many great hockey players? It's the human he is, the human side, how contagious his personality is, and how lovable he is. You see it any building he goes back to. I mean, any building he goes to, I should say. But you go to Vegas, you see all the signs that are on the boards. Pittsburgh, when he goes back to Pittsburgh, all that's so cool to see. They come out and they have all the signs for him. The impacts he's made on families, little kids in those buildings. It's like. It's incredible. And you brought up baseball, the baseball side of it, and they do that in baseball, right? So you get a guy that it's his last stop in every ballpark around the league, and they get him whatever maybe I've seen in the past. It's a fishing chair for his fishing boat or all this stuff and meaningful stuff. It's almost like Fleury's like the first hockey player getting this treatment since like Gretzky or Messier, like those type of players where every building he's going to, it's like, this is the last. And I'm sure underneath what people don't see is equipment managers, players, they're asking, hey, can I get a signed Fleury stick? Can I get a signed Fleury puck? Because it's the last chance that he says, who knows what could happen. He says it's it. But I know when he's rolling to Detroit today, I'm sure Patrick Kane, Ben Sherratt, there's players, can I get a stick? Can I get a puck? Tony DeCosta. It
happens in every city.
Tony DeCosta is traveling with a lot of extra sticks right now in the last stretch for Flower. I know that.
Yeah, and it's every city. I'll see the Wild will warm up. They'll get done, and then I'll see Tony DeCosta and a couple of the equipment guys with 3 or 4 of his sticks. And I watch him walk from the Wild room over to the home room, and there are 3 or 4 players on that team that know this is the last chance they're going to ever have to get something from the Flower. And he does it, to your point, with a smile on his face. He's a real throwback. And I'm wondering, too, because you mentioned, and this is probably it, but I don't think when he made this announcement, he realized how impactful he'd be with this team. Like, he's been really good. I think 11-5-1. It's not just the numbers, it's the big wins he's had along the way. And I think this is a real testament to how well he's played. This is a huge game, and this is a huge home and home. Both these teams are going to be fighting for the next 6 weeks to get in and for playoff positioning. And Detroit's one of the hottest teams in the league, as we referenced already. And even though Gustafsson's fully rested and had a good tournament up with Team Sweden, Hines goes back to Marc-Andre Fleury in this spot. To me, that's pretty telling.
Yeah, and I think what you don't see either, or you might see, but it is the locker room, what he does in the locker room.
Oh.
The team, I don't want to say they play different for two goalies, whether you got a goalie that handles the puck or doesn't handle the puck, but the way they compete for him, because they know there's not a ton of games left in his career. You go to the Colorado game. Who thought they were going to go into Colorado and beat a Colorado game in the afternoon? Like, it was you know what I mean? There's no way. It was one of those games you look through the schedule at the beginning of the year. It's like, this is probably one we're not going to get. You know what I mean? So we got to get a different one. Well, Hines knows the situation his team's in right now. Not only that you got some guys coming off the beach, like you mentioned, you got some guys that might be tired from just the emotional amount they poured into the Four Nations tournament. They know they need this locker room to rally and come out and have a good performance. Well, they go with a guy maybe that is just going to get this group excited to play. He needs a group that's excited. It could be a game, at least at 11:30. Granted, it's a national broadcast game, so everybody's going to be watching. But it's a guy that can get that locker room going, get him on track. And, but at the same time, you're resting Gus. He plays some meaningful games, some emotional games. It might be rest for him. But you can't go wrong with Flower. He gets that locker room going. You look at some of the games he's won this year, and they just shut down Colorado. Like, you thought you win that game, maybe it's 5-4. They just completely shut them out and took their stars out of that game.
So for you as a goalie, were the sight lines different in different buildings? Because as I stand rinkside at Madison Square Garden, it looks and feels different than it does at the United Center or the Xcel Energy Center or at the Shark Tank where you played in San Jose. For you, were there different rinks that felt better for you or worse for you based on either the lighting or how the ice was? Yeah,
the seats were the biggest thing. With dark seats, you look at like the Staples Centers, they got all black seats, so that it's tough to see a puck when it gets above the glass. If the seats are dark, granted, hopefully the teams are selling those seats out. But I know Detroit has just made a switch because when they first built the Little Caesars Arena, the seats were all that bright red.
Yep.
And now they've gone black. So I haven't obviously played in there since they've gone to the black seats. But yeah, it's lighting, the seat color and all that. And then it's just the comfort of playing there. Say you go into a building where you've played good or you've had a couple good games in the past and you just feel good about that building. And personally for me, it was Calgary. And because I was fortunate to start my career out west, and Calgary at the time wasn't very good. So Todd McClellan was smart. He's like, well, we can play him against a not so good team. So I got to see Calgary a lot. I got to see Edmonton a lot before they got Connor McDavid. I got to see the Carolinas. I got to see the Arizonas. So I got to play in those buildings a lot. And you feel good about those buildings. Now there's some buildings you roll into and you necessarily like Colorado. I never loved going into that building.
No one wants to play against that team, right?
No,
I mean, that's
exactly.
tough. Well, let's talk about Calgary because above each of the nets at the Saddle Dome is that flame machine. And it's shooting out fire. So bad enough that you get scored on, bad enough that they're chanting at you, then you've got that heat right over your head, and you can feel that sucker.
Oh, absolutely, especially when you come out and hit the ice, too, for the first time. It's almost like the cannon in Columbus.
Oh, that scares the crap out of me.
If you don't know that's there, and you remember it's there all the time, and then they score, and then the cannon goes off. But, yeah, even when you go out for the starting lineups in Calgary, and they got it coming down from the scoreboard, you can feel that gust of fire they blow out of there for the flame stuff, yeah.
All right, just a couple of minutes, and we'll get to the Wild game, which is about 5 minutes away from starting. I want to talk about buildings and atmospheres because I get the question a lot because of how much I've traveled with this team, what my favorite building is to work in. And for me on the road, it's a bullet, no-brainer, number one, Madison Square Garden in New York, world's most famous arena. It's an incredible experience. Got to see like Ryan Reynolds at a game there. You got the movie star aspect like you do in LA. For you as a player, what was your favorite building with the atmosphere and the crowd that really got you juiced up for a road game?
Well, I loved Vegas. When Vegas came into the league, it was awesome. You didn't know what to expect, and then you heard about it around the league that wait till you get to Vegas. It's really cool to play, and you're just kind of like, come on, really? And then the first time you get there, the atmosphere was like playoffs every game. They had the girls dancing on the glass and warm-ups, and the place was already packed, and the Wild fans traveled so well at that building was always full, but the music was loud. The atmosphere was awesome. They did an unbelievable job there. And I still think back. I don't know why I had to start there so many times. I'm like, why? Yeah, I start 20 games a year, and you're giving me Vegas.
You're kind of a Vegas guy, though, Al. You're kind of a guy that fits in Vegas.
You give me Vegas. You give me Nashville. Like, what's going on here? But I love playing in that building, and then you go back. You talk about atmosphere. I always love playing in Montreal. Yep. There's the history there. Montreal was so cool. Chicago. I was fortunate to actually play there for a year. That was so fun. The atmosphere there, even though we weren't a great team, but just a national anthem every game. The history there. Nashville's good, and Tampa does a great job down there. And obviously, when their teams are good, it's fun. But I think Montreal, Chicago are just so unique in the tradition of the city, and I love playing in those buildings too.
Just about to wrap up here at Insight Brewing on our live portion of the program. Food truck here in about a half an hour. We've got the Wooden Sticks beer for $5. Build your own bloody. The beer bar available when that food truck gets here. Smash burgers and wings. I really want to thank everybody for coming out today. Al, we've got a Wild game tipping off in a couple of minutes. First goal scorer for the Wild. Let's make a prediction. We'll see how we do today. The fans can hold us to the fire, but who's your guy today to get the first goal for Minnesota?
God, it threw me right at the. Oh gosh, I'm gonna go Boldy. I'm gonna go Boldy.
I like the pick.
He's been playing. He's been competing. He's ready to go right out of the gates. And
I tell you what, when I saw the minutes played in that game against Team Canada, that championship game, Faber led all 28 defensemen and all players in minutes played. Boldy led all U.S. forwards in minutes played, and I just think, coming back off this break, if these guys can get into a groove here, they're going to get so much out of this game. And so I'm going to go Marco Rossi. I'm going to stand by what I said. The break for a guy like Marco Rossi, I don't think is going to hurt him. I love the way he's playing, and I think it's going to be a finesse game today where there's going to be some offense. I think defense and that structure that these teams play with in the heart of the season might get a little bit lost in the shuffle. First game out of the break, I think there might be 3-4 goals that you'll need to score if you're going to win today. And this is a huge test for Minnesota with no Kaprizov for at least the next probably 3 or 4 weeks against the hottest team in the league in their building, with Minnesota probably having 5 guys playing in the 4 Nations and Detroit probably having their best and Dylan Larkin, but not many. So I think they've got the better legs early. If Minnesota can kind of hang in there and weather the storm, it should be fantastic. We're going to do a live show here at Insight Brewing once every month. So keep an eye on social media. Follow me at Gorgomatic21. I got to thank this guy right here with the awesome mustache. Give it up for my producer, Alex Haugen. This guy, I'm telling you right now, I can barely operate my email, which is earthlink.net, which tells you all you need to know. It came out right after those pigeons
right
would deliver
Fleury's first game.
Yeah, exactly.
I should say that. I might have my flowers all over my car and my wheels off.
He's carried me through more issues on the technology side than I care to talk about. And it isn't just me, a couple of our guests, because it's Wooden Sticks. We have a lot of older guests on our show. And the Bruce Boudreau thing was a complete and utter fiasco. Bruce was driving through the middle of Nova Scotia, and I'm talking out in the sticks, and he was stopping his car every 10 minutes, and poor Alex was trying to communicate with him that he had to keep his screen on because every time his screen would lock, the podcast would shut down. And it's Bruce Boudreau. Like, it's a huge get for us on the show. And so we got through it, but this guy is unbelievable. And then that good-looking guy at the bar right there. Wave your hands. Come on, White Dog. Andrew Height. He looks great in a singlet. Over at Talk North, this guy is doing everything. He really put this all together. He facilitated this partnership with the guys here at Insight Brewing. And thank you again, guys, for having us today. Folks, thanks for coming out. It's time to play wild hockey. Alex Stalock, thanks for doing a great job.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is Wooden Sticks. We'll be back again next week with a new show. Find us on the Talk North Podcast Network. Let's play hockey.
Well done.